Hi, Mark, and today on Outside Views, I want to talk about the actions of the British government in the Johnson scandal and some other problems Sunak has. But Rishi Sunak's government is open to litigation now. They have refused to provide Johnson's personal information to an investigation. A committee of inquiry in London wants to examine all files from the corona crisis. I talked about this in a video a few days ago. And former Prime Minister Johnson also offers his WhatsApp messages now, causing unrest with that. Because former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is giving his successor Rishi Sunak a new headache here. This time it is about not any vague threats from Johnson's supporters, for example, in the lower house faction of the ruling Conservatives, but about an act of demonstrative cooperation and transparency by Johnson himself. Yeah, I know that's a new. It's about diary notes, calendar and text messages from the messenger service WhatsApp. They were requested by a committee of inquiry to clarify how the UK has come through the years of the corona pandemic, whether political mistakes have been made in the fight against the virus, and what conclusions should be drawn for the British health system. The UK government has defied an order to provide the country's coronavirus inquiry committee with an unfiltered collection of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's personal messages. With a deadline for filing documents on Thursday, the government is launching an unprecedented legal battle against an investigation Johnson launched while he was Prime Minister. The Conservative government has refused to release the information, arguing that it is undoubtedly irrelevant. The privacy of those involved is therefore paramount. In addition, the Cabinet Office claimed not to be in possession of the messages and notebooks that were also requested. Johnson then increased pressure on the government on Wednesday night when he said he had handed all messages and notebooks to the Cabinet Office and asked them to be passed uncensored to the committee. The head of the commission, former Justice Heather Hallett, had asked to see notebooks, diaries and WhatsApp messages between Johnson and others that could constitute evidence. The government had only partially complied, and according to their own statements, they cut out personal and private information that was once again clearly irrelevant. However, Hallett, who in a role has the authority to request evidence and question witnesses under oath, wants to judge for herself. The government missed the deadline it set for Thursday afternoon for the submission of the complete documents, which cover a period of 2 years starting in early 2020. Shortly thereafter, the government said it would challenge the order in court. And as I said shortly before the deadline, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said his government would of course comply with the law and cooperate with the investigation. Yeah. Like other members of his government, Johnson was fined last year for breaking lockdown rules in the corona pandemic. And now just another deadline has passed, and once again the British government has not handed over the requirement documents to the Commission of Inquiry into the corona pandemic. And that is the point where Boris Johnson himself was pushing for the release. It's really funny. So, the British government now is going to court in this dispute over the WhatsApp messages. And that was reported by the PA's new agency after the deadline set by Corona Investigation Committee for the release of the news and other documents had expired. The judges should consider whether the investigative body has the right to compel the release of undoubtedly irrelevant news and documents, as the government's Cabinet Office said in a letter to the committee. And, former Judge Lady Heather Hallett is tasked with reviewing the controversial handling of the corona pandemic under Johnson, and that's what she needs evidence for. Hallett had given the Cabinet Office a deadline of 4 p.m. on Thursday to hand over the Conservative ex-Prime Minister's correspondence with key cabinet members and government employees from the time of the corona pandemic, and as I said before, uncensored. Otherwise, she threatened criminal prosecution. But the Cabinet Office has still refused to pass it on, citing the privacies of those infected, but initially stated they did not have the messages or notebooks that were required. But Johnson proved them wrong because he has given them everything. So it's like holding a hot potato, and that's a typical Johnson. Having a real hot potato, and here, Cabinet Office, have it. I love that move by Johnson, by the way. But there is speculation that the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fears that his role in the pandemic could also be scrutinized again through these messages. He was Chancellor of the Exchequer, or Finance Minister for the rest of the world, and Johnson, on the other hand, is said to have ambitions to return to the top of government. It has been an open secret for a long time that in London even important agreements with the government are settled via WhatsApp. So what is in there? And content from more than 100,000 WhatsApp messages from former Health Secretary Matt Hancock only became public in March and left him in need of explanation. As we all know, Boris Johnson is a British politician who has served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom since July 24th in 2019. Prior to his premiership, he was the Member of Parliament for Uxbridge and South Ruislip and held various positions, including Mayor of London from 2008 to 16 and Member of Parliament for Henley from 2001 to 2008. And the term Partygate, that's the lockdown affair, refers to a scandal involving Boris Johnson and allegations of COVID-19 lockdown violations by the Conservative Party during the pandemic. And the scandal came to light in November 2021, but it primarily revolved around events and actions that occurred in 2020 and early 2021, and now it's about the government handling of the situation again. But the Partygate scandal gained significant attention and criticism due to the perceived hypocrisy of the government's actions, as they were enforcing strict lockdown measures on the general public while allegedly flouting those same rules themselves. And the revelations led to public outrage and calls for accountability. And in response, the government initially denied any wrongdoing, with Boris Johnson stating that he was unaware of any parties being held. However, as more evidence emerged, including leaked videos and testimonies from former staff members, the pressure on Johnson and his government increased. But even if this dispute in the media now about the handling and Johnson and his WhatsApp covers up a lot, Rishi Sunak's government still has other problems, because at the same time UK industrial sentiment continues to point to slowing economic activity. The S&P Purchasing Managers Index fell 0.7 points in May to 47.1. And as the indicator remains below 50 points, it indicates economic contraction. The downturn in the manufacturing sector has accelerated according to S&P figures. And the main reasons are a poor economic mood, lower incoming orders from abroad, and a reduction in inventories on the part of customers. The supply chain problem, on the other hand, has continued to decrease. But there are also positive developments on the cost side. But we still also have the shortage of workers due to Brexit. In 2021, only 15,000 visas were issued for seasonal agriculture workers in the UK, and the government is now planning a significantly higher number. Local media report that the government plans to grant 45,000 seasonal visas to workers in the horticultural sector, that means fruits, vegetables and other crops, in 2024. Since Brexit, British business people have been struggling to find enough workers due to stricter immigration regulations. The entire sector has increased the number of applications to the government to increase the number of visas. And in a meeting with the agricultural sector, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak clarified that this number could be increased by another 10,000 visas for agricultural workers, or 55,000 visas in total. And I added these last 2 points in this video so it will not go under, because I'm quite sure that in the media in the UK at the moment there's a lot of headlines about Boris Johnson, like it is in many German newspapers here, and the WhatsApp messages. But the trouble with the economy, that was just a very small note on the press agencies, will probably be covered up by that, and that's why I put it in here. And the newest discussion about visas for seasonal workers. Well, if the number of visas will help is a good question, because it's still more expensive than to work inside the EU, at least for EU citizens, is something that will have slipped under the radar as well under all these scandal reportings at the moment. And that's why I always slip something like this into the videos that have another topic, so you at least get these informations and they don't just float by and nobody has heard about it. But there is a decline in the economy again, and they are talking about new visas for seasonal workers. And that's what I wanted you to know. But I also have to come back to the WhatsApp messages. I always wonder, when people are doing government stuff on WhatsApp, I just don't get it. Why on earth they use WhatsApp for this? I don't put anything confidential on WhatsApp or anything important on WhatsApp, because you know who all can read whatever you write there or send there. Yeah, I talk to friends about Star Trek Fleet Command on WhatsApp, or just saying, yeah, I'm coming over in an hour. But government stuff? Seriously? I mean, at least use something encrypted. You never have an absolute guarantee that no one has access, but I know at least from an Austrian messenger service where all messages are encrypted and only the two affected can read them and stuff like that. But WhatsApp, seriously? Why don't you send yourself TikTok videos about it? I don't know. But nevertheless, it is a fun situation with Boris Johnson being at the trigger again, although this is evidence against Johnson. But it brings Rishi Sunak into trouble. And that is something that's like, that's really a soap opera at the moment again. And if you like soap operas, well, then hope that it goes on. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.